welcome to this webinar. I will repeat myself. My name is Aigars Kadikis, and I will entertain you about Windows Eventlog monitoring, how to accomplish such thing, because once we have agent running inside the Windows server or workstation, we can use out from the box capabilities to gather the Windows logs and send to the Zabbix central server for deeper analysis. So why we want to do that? Because out from the box, most of applications write already the health inside the Eventweaver, and currently we see here a screenshot with the events. We are browsing the system events, and each event is having like a severity, a source, and event ID. And based on these columns, we will actually be able to configure these records inside the Zabbix. Like, what is your scope of interest? What is are you interested in the error messages only, or with a specific source like grow policy type of errors? All that is customizable inside the Zabbix server when we configure item for the Zabbix agent. I will talk about that in upcoming slides. One additional point, we can analyze the event logs in retrospect. What does it mean? It means when we configure the item, we can also collect everything from the date the machine was installed, like maybe 2 years ago or 5 years ago. It's like optionally, it's a possibility. You can do that, or you can skip that and collect just from now and just look forward what's happening inside the Eventweaver. In order to use Eventlog, we have to have Zabbix Agent 1 or Zabbix Agent 2. Both will work quite good. Active checks is a must. Here in screenshot, we see like type Zabbix Agent active, which is meaning like pushing information to the server. And well, this means like pushing. It also means we have to have a port exposed in the firewall, so the agent can actually reach the central server. So by default, it tries to reach TCP 151 on the central server, or if the monitoring happens on the proxy. And yeah, the recommended approach is to monitor the logs every 1 second. And if we talk about permissions out from the box, the Windows is running with the user system. It's very powerful. If you target to have a bare minimal permissions, then just add this user to the group, which is called event log readers. Then you have like bare minimum permissions, and it will collect the entries just fine and send to the central server. Just a brief slide how to install Zabbix Agent. Here, an example with the MSE package. Like what is the bare minimal working command? You can really use this PDF as a input. You can put this snippet inside the like script, and it will work just great. Just here, some lines is having the space. That space is intentional, just because we have like divided the lines in a beautiful way, like to increase the readability. So the space at the beginning is intentional. So one way was to install using MSI package, and the other one is by extracting the zip archive and by manually installing the like service. All right, let's continue. Active checks only. When we talk about monitoring in general, we usually imagine that the central server is the guy who reach out a machine and fetch the metric to the central database. Like that's the native way how we think about monitoring, but they are passive checks. Like every metric usually costs 1 TCP connection, but the log file monitoring is not capable to use passive checks. It can use only active checks. And what's important for the active checks is what is the host name configured inside the agent configuration. When we open the agent d.conf, we have the option to configure host name. Out from the box, it actually is wrong host name. It will say Windows Server. So if you don't, if you install manually the agent using the command line, not MSE package, most likely it's wrong already. And just make sure the host name is either computer name, and then all we need to do is make sure we have the same host name, case sensitive, inside the graphical interface when we open the host object. So practically, when you start the agent, the identification is this, and the agent will sort of knock knock on the server door. And if we have an object like this inside the interface, it's great. We can apply the log file monitoring. You may think like, what's the IP address or DNS? For the log file monitoring, it does not matter at all. All it matters is what is the host name, like the very first field configured in Zabbix. And also we can kind of mix together with the visible name. Visible name is different thing. We need to make sure that the first field is the same as inside the agent configuration file. If you want to explore this topic, like to make sure it is suitable for your infrastructure, you can use this grep command to grep the central server log or log of the proxy server. And if you see such lines, cannot send list of active checks, then like it means this guy is not really registered. You have to register or maybe rename some objects inside the Zabbix. Maybe you're using the full qualified domain name, but if the machine is not configured to use a full qualified domain name, then you must decide, like just use some unified syntax for everything. All right, continue. Once the agent is up and running, now we have this dedicated item key, which is called like Eventlog, which supports 7 arguments. And the first one is the source, where we want to grab those entries: application, security, system. Like here in the screenshot, we can see application, security, system. So we can specify like have one dedicated item to collect application logs, one will collect system, one will reach out security registry. Then the regex thing, if you are really happy to target some patterns, some error codes. For example, here in the screenshot, we see logon script failed. If you want target such things, or maybe the sentence is much more complex, then either write these 3 words, logon script failed, or use some more complex regular expression pattern. Severity, the third argument, it's just the first column, like you see here. Information warning error, use the same wording exactly like it's mentioned in the screenshot. Source, there are some different sources, so this can be also another filter, what kind of records we are capturing. And then the event ID, that's like almost the essence of everything, because that's not like a counter or just some incremental ID which is producing random numbers. Those IDs are very hard coded, and every event inside the Windows system is usually like having the very same ID. Like you are connecting to wireless access point, it will have one ID. You are disconnecting, it will have a different ID. So in the later slides, we will see that we will target the very specific ID. Okay, what else? Max lines. So we are running this item key, and we will out from the box, it will collect 20 lines per second. And it's fine if you just playing with the system and just developing some proof of concept template. But if you will apply this to hundreds of servers and tell the Zabbix agent just to collect everything, you will have some struggles with the database load, like because it collects a lot of text and the database will not be able to cope in time, then like it's a problem. So be careful. If you want to apply to pick up everything, every log entry, you can like insert here max lines, set number 1. So it will only collect 1 line per second, and slowly, like throughout the night, it will forward everything to the central server. Yeah, but that's not the best approach to forward to the central server. We will see, like in upcoming slides, what kind of approaches we suggest to use. Here, and the last argument is mode. And this one was like, if we don't use skip, then it will collect everything. If we use skip, then it will start from now to collect everything which appears like from now and on. Okay, here is one example how it will look once we have installed that item. We have configured. We have the timestamp, which is the timestamp of the agent picking up the entry, and then the timestamp which reflects actually the entry. And like I was creating this screenshot today, and it's collecting like a log from October 2021. Then the source, severity, event ID, and the actual entry. And now we can see like the monitoring tool is collecting text, and this is dangerous. If we apply the template to hundreds of Windows machines, if we if we even select the severity warning, that's dangerous. If we select error and critical, that's much safer because errors and critical does not appear so frequently. But once you target warning, it will be a lot of load for the database server, and be very careful. Okay, in upcoming slides, so I will guide how to monitor and detect those events, how to configure the triggers. So monitoring approaches, and approach 1, it's considered like the most most self-explanatory and in the same time easy. We just specify event ID and automatically time out the thing when there is no such entries anymore. And here inside the configuration, we see like we are using this dedicated item. We are reaching out the registry application. We are targeting severity error, and then there is like a source of error, and at the the last argument, the event ID 1000, and I'm using this like special symbol. I will talk about that in the upcoming slide. But regarding the trigger expression, we are using no data function, no data which identifies if there is data inside the item or there is no data. So if the data comes, because we are targeting only one specific event ID, which comes with 1000, then it will just instantly fire up a trigger, send us an email, or open a ticket inside the service desk. And then automatically after 3 minutes, it will time out. If 3 minutes is too, like if you are worried, you can set like 8 hours. And if no repeated records are hitting this item, then it will resolve automatically. So this is very easy and understandable. Maybe it's not like it's silly to provide this automatic timeout, and let's have a look on the different approaches as well. Regarding this syntax, like this first symbol, I would like to call it a roof, and it describes the beginning of the word, and the $sign is describing the end of the word. And why we are using that? Because if we just use the search 1000, it can match also 10,000 or 11,000. So we don't want to match these guys. That's why we need to specify what is the start of the line and what is the end of the line. Okay, second approach, when we really know the problem ID and recovery ID. And here in example, I'm highlighting one particular event, which is called network link is disconnected. And it comes with the event ID 27. So that's like bad news. Network link is disconnected. And the source is E1D Express, and there comes like another event. I will click here, and that another event is called network link has been established at 1 gigabit full duplex. So these are kind of coming from the same category, from the category network. And we can see like bad news comes with the event ID 27, good news comes with the event ID 32, and also like severity is different, warning and information. So we can kind of think of a trigger logic which will encapsulate information warning together and like gather everything which comes from this source, E1D Express. I will go to the next slide, and the implementation, it is as is. So we are reaching out system registry, collecting information and warning in a level of one item, and we are really extracting everything from one source. And then we are collecting two different event IDs in the same time, 32 and 27. And inside the trigger logic, all we need to do is tell like what is the ID for the bad news. The ID is 27, and it will fire up a trigger, we'll send the notification, and whenever we receive something different, and the only thing which can be different is event ID 32, then the trigger will automatically resolve. I would say this is very elegant solution if you can do the extra work and figure out those IDs, what is ID for the good news and what is ID for the bad news. We can have a very professional trigger which will provide a very precise duration. Inside the Zabbix monitoring tool, we will see a very precise duration, what was the problem time. And again, like here we are using the regular expression syntax, the roof symbol and $, just match only 32 and 27 and not much like these guys. Okay, now let's talk about we have a separate registry, not only application security system, but there is a huge catalog, application and service logs, which when we expand this Microsoft guy, then it will provide like a lot of child applications we can monitor. And if we target such things, then there's a room for creativity. And so I will open the next slide and show how to monitor guys from this section, which is a part from applications and services logs here. When we expand that Microsoft, then there are a lot of things. And here in this example, I'm providing like print service, and there is a log admin. And this log is writing some errors, and we have the source. And in order, like if you like what you see on the screen, you want to transfer this to Zabbix database, then all we need to do is highlight this guy, log name. Just you can select here right away, click the mouse right button and copy to the clipboard. And now I will go to the next slide. And we just publish the content from the clipboard as a part of the item. Like the very same data which was in the previous slide, we just put in the item name. I have a lot of commas here, like 7 arguments are supported, and I'm in this example, I'm telling the agent to pick up everything from the installation date, which is behind this print service admin. So since there are not since it's targeting a very specific application, it will not be like too much information. So we can afford pick up everything. And now when we use this approach, like collect everything from one source, which is sort of dangerous, but since the source is a tiny one, now we can use a trigger function which aggregates some stuff on the fly. Here in the example, we are utilizing the function count, and I'm telling the central server, like, please, there, Zabbix server, count the failed patterns for the last 90 seconds. Like, if the string or error message contains failed, then just like produce, like go in the problem state, and it will fire up a trigger. So this is customizable. You can, I have 90 seconds, so it will time out quite fast, but you can have like 1 hour. If there are errors in the last 1 hour, then just fire up the trigger and generate event. Okay, going further, the last approach is related to the graphs. If you fancy to draw some graphs, you want like a visual, what is the hits per errors, what is the hit per warnings, or some patterns you really fancy to gather. So we can create a calculated item which is linked on that source item, which will just generate integers for the scope you specify. And so yeah, the first one is the collector item, and the next one is calculated item. And I will go to the next slide to explain what is inside the calculated item. So inside the calculated item, we tell their Zabbix tool, please reach out the central collector item and count the failed patterns for the last 90 seconds. This item is storing information as a numeric, and it means like we can operate with integers now and generate some graphs. Let's have a look, and voila. So if the time is going and there is no lines matching the pattern, then it's like 0 all the time. And if there happens to happen some patterns, then like it will just increase this number. It will be 1, or if there are a lot of patterns, like a general failure where there are some errors generated per like multiple errors per 1 minute, then there will be a bigger spike. All right, and that is it for my presentation. Thank you very much for having me. And now the questions, if we have some.
Yes, thank you, Aigars. We do have some questions. A couple of them are related to different types of event logs. So first question is it possible to collect logs from other sources? So for example, logs that are not in the Windows logs section, but those that are in, for example, applications and services, Microsoft, then Windows, and so on. So if you open event logs, you have multiple sections there, right?
Yes. Yeah, I did answer this question in the slide approach number 3. It was talking about exactly this approach, which is like applications and services. And this is a fair question because the documentation page at the moment does not tell how to do that. I will just scroll here. The question was about this section, and my answer is just highlight this guy and you are ready to go.
Just refer to this here name, yeah. Again, I guess it's the same type of question. Is it possible to monitor, for example, printer event log, right? So the answer is yes.
I think it will be available in the same section.
Yeah. Maybe you can elaborate here, Aigars, about the good news, bad news, trigger, and resolve. What if you cannot assume the same NIC type on all of the machines?
Sorry, I did not capture the question.
So maybe take a look at it up in the Q&A section.
okay.
Just take a look at it yourself. Talking about different types of network interfaces. How will those work with your triggers?
Yeah. I think we cannot rely on the event ID. We have to rely on the event name and like the actual error message inside the event log. And because we have the functionality of creating trigger tags based on the metric, and the metric in the context is a line containing the NIC type, network interface type. So we can, with the help of regular expression, we can like pass this type to the tag and then use this multiple event correlate. What was the functionality? I forget. Multiple trigger. Arturs, can you help?
I think you're talking about either multiple problem generation.
Yes,
and then,
yes, multiple problem generation mode, which will, like, if the event log writes one interface and then in another second it writes different interface, it will generate absolutely two independent things inside the Zabbix, and those things are like harder to close. And one way how to close them are by creating trigger tag which match the interface type or interface name.
Yeah, and then correlating on a trigger level. Also, by the way, covered in our trainings with a use case for that. This is more, I guess, about the agent. Can we have multiple host names in the config? Like if the host is a part of a cluster and holds a virtual name, we like to have monitoring for. So if we
yes, I know the answer. Like starting with Zabbix 5.4, this is like a very awesome functionality. We can have multiple host names, and then inside the interface, we can have an individual object which has like I don't know, application name attached to it, and from agent perspective, it's serving to two different hosts. It's possible.
A question about general log monitoring. So is it possible to collect logs from an application log file, not in the Windows Eventlog? So we're talking about general logs here. Yes, Zabbix can do that. Application log.
Yes.
Yeah, we have an item key called log that can collect any log file.
Yes.
In a very similar, the syntax of the key is very similar to the event log one, of course, except all of the event IDs and things like that, but it is quite similar. Mostly relies on regular expression to match the lines that you need. And then there is one more question about your trigger expressions, but it's I think we can answer it in text. It's not really necessary to read it out. Okay, thank you a lot, Aigars. I think people now know and have some use cases in front of them on how to monitor event logs and different logics that they can implement and things like that.